Imagine a structure so vital, it protects the most delicate and powerful organ in your body, your brain. Your skull is more than just a frame. It's a fortress with 7 gates, your eyes, ears, nostrils, and mouth, channels through which every sound, sight, scent, and taste shape your mind. What if I told you that understanding how these inputs affect your brain could transform not just your health, but your life? Let's unlock the secrets of the decision-making powerhouse inside your head. All right, now let's get started.
The skull. And with the skeletal system, it's an internal structure causing us to stand upright. But when it comes to the head, the skeletal system now becomes an external structure. It becomes an external structure because it is now protecting the most delicate and yet the most important organ of the body. But when you have a look at the head, you will see 7 avenues of access into the brain. There are 2 ears, there are 2 eyes,
there are 2 nostrils, and there is a mouth. Everything we hear or have ever heard, everything we see or have ever seen, everything we smell, and everything that goes into our mouth, whether it be food or drink, has an effect on the brain. Our decisions determine our destiny. So how important that we know something about the decision-making part of our brain. This is an area that many people are ignorant. The little book, The Ministry of Healing, which I see is up the back in the foyer, it says in there on page 127 that the only hope of better things is the education of the people in right principles. It's a tragic thing today that in Australia, 50% of Australians have, are, or will suffer from some form of mental illness, and 1,700 cases of Alzheimer's are being diagnosed every day in Australia. These figures indicate that many people don't
understand their brain, and they don't realise that we have more control over what we do and even what we say than we think we do. So in this short little time I have with you this morning, I'd like to just open the door a little bit and show you the parts of our brain where we make our decision and what influences them. So we're going to begin by looking at the brain. Now the brain, from side on, it looks a little bit like this. And there is what's called the limbic system, and the limbic system basically takes up about that part of the brain. And this limbic system is often called the emotional brain. And I think we all know about emotions. And I think we all know that emotions aren't a very good guide because they go up and down like the wind. But there's another part of our brain that God designed to actually
control that limbic system, that emotional part of the brain. So to do this, we're going to have a look at the brain from top down.
Top down, you will have a look at the brain like this, and in the front part of the brain, and we're going to call this the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain, and I think the way you're looking it is. So in the right part of the brain, you could call that the I want section. That's down there. Sorry, not the I want, the I won't. Now this is a very important part of the brain. Where it's very important is, no, I won't have that cigarette. No, I won't have that cup of coffee. No, I won't have that big steak. I'll have a bowl of lentils instead. And on the left part of the brain is the I will.
And the IFT, will part of the brain, is also very important because I will get out of bed and exercise this morning. I will go to bed early. I will make decisions that are helpful for my body. So you've got the I won't,
and you've got the I will. And we need a little bit of balance in there, and that's where we come to. Right in the centre is the I want part of the brain.
Our body's design reminds us of the vital need to protect our most delicate and powerful organ, the brain. While much attention is given to physical health, true cognitive wellness depends on consistent care. One often overlooked threat is depression, a silent force that can accelerate dementia by causing stress and chemical imbalances that damage brain cells, impairing memory and decision-making.
This underscores the importance of cultivating habits that nurture both mind and body. Restful sleep, a nutrient-rich diet, and regular exercise are foundational for brain health. Adding social connections, mindfulness, and deep breathing exercises further strengthens the brain's resilience. By prioritizing mental wellness, we create a solid foundation for lasting cognitive vitality.
Depression, a way out. Every chapter starts with someone else's story, showing how they conquered depression, using some of the simple principles I'm showing you now, and some of the simple principles I've been showing you all week. Dehydration affects depression. Late nights depression affect depression. So you can see what we're doing this morning. We're pulling those 8 physical laws we looked at this week, and we're pulling the 8 mental laws together. We should always have our detective hat on. You know, recently I consulted a private detective, and I said to him, "Oh, you're a private detective, so am I." I love the detective work of discovering why someone has a certain condition. It's Newton's third law of motion. To every action, there is an equal and an opposite reaction. Proverbs 26 verse 2 states that the curse causeless.
It's Newton's third law of motion. To every action, there is an equal and an opposite reaction. Proverbs 26:2 states that the curse causeless shall not come. You know what that means? No problem happens without a cause. There is always a reason. In fact, to say someone just has something is to defy basic science. So we should always be looking at the cause of a problem. And sometimes the problem for depression could be too much coffee. Dehydration. So that's the best place to start when someone comes to me wanting help with depression. Do you know that's what I do? I said, start drinking more water. Start easing off your coffee. You could stop your coffee straight away, but you might suffer. A clear indication that it's not doing you any good.
Start going to bed early. Start limiting your technology time. Start seriously assessing what you're watching and the effect it's having on your brain. Start exercising. But I don't feel like exercising. Yes, that's your limbic emotional brain. But what do you want? I want to feel good. I want to conquer my depression, so I will go and exercise. Can you see how that all threads into each other? The second law is the law of choice. And the law of choice, as you can see,
And the law of choice, as you can see, is determined in that I want the frontal lobe part of the brain. Your guardian, where your goals are, this is what you feel like doing.
this is what you want, so that influences your decisions. And when you're well slept, well hydrated, well sunned, well exercised, well fed, that I want part of the brain is a lot stronger. But we've got something else coming here, and that's habit. You've heard of habit? Habit can be our best friends or our worst enemies.
Our mental and physical health are deeply intertwined. Depression isn't merely an emotional challenge, it impacts the entire body, accelerating cognitive decline and raising the risk of dementia. Chronic stress from depression disrupts hormones, neurotransmitters, and brain function, weakening the vital neural connections that keep our minds sharp. Fortunately, natural remedies provide accessible ways to build resilience. Staying hydrated supports brain function, regular exercise enhances mood and promotes brain health, and a diet rich in omega-3s, antioxidants, and vitamins strengthens cognitive resilience. Prioritizing restorative sleep, reducing screen time, and avoiding late nights further protect mental well-being. Practices like mindfulness, journaling, and connecting with loved ones amplify these benefits. By making small intentional choices every day, we can safeguard our minds and foster long-term cognitive wellness. Step by step, these habits become the foundation for a healthier, stronger brain.
Whatever you're going through, the Lord has an answer. And often we miss out on the answer because we went to bed too late and we don't hear that morning voice. We have a choice. Forgiveness is a choice. Let me tell you the story of a man who came to us. His name was Doug. I said, did you have a healthy, happy childhood? He said, no, I didn't. My father yelled at me all my life. He was 40. He had prostate cancer. I said to him, oh, sometimes that's all you can say. Oh. I kept moving on because I could see it really irritated him. He heard all the lectures. He heard about the power of forgiveness. He heard about the fact that forgiveness is the only prescription in the entire universe
that has the power to break the chemical bonds of hostility and hate. Forgiveness cuts the chains that bind you to painful pasts. Forgiveness gives you wings.
He heard that in the lecture. I talked to him later after the lecture. I said, Doug, you've heard about the power of forgiveness. Have you forgiven? You don't understand. He yelled at me all my life. I said, I can understand that must have been very, very hard, Doug, but you've got quite a serious illness now, and I believe that for you to heal, you need to forgive your father. You don't understand. His voice was rising. With fear and trepidation, I pushed it a little bit further. I said, Doug, it'll only take a minute. You don't understand. So I stopped. I backed off. Ooh, it was getting a little bit volatile in there. I changed the subject. 2 minutes later, Doug said to me, I've done it. Congratulations, Doug.
Now his limbic system. His emotional brain said, don't do this. Can you see that? And all his life he'd been harboring this. My father yelled at me. My father yelled at me. He yelled at me. He yelled at me.
Yelled at me, he yelled at me, he yelled at me. Can you see what's happening in his brain? What was happening in his brain was he was developing a very strong habit pathway of anger towards his father. In fact, the first week, I heard him telling other people, other guests, my father yelled at me all my life. Can you see it's getting bigger and bigger? And when in the lecture, he heard to forgive. You see, it's not a limbic emotional brain decision, or you'll never do it. It's an I want decision. What do I want? I want to be free. Notice what he said. I've done it. No emotion there at all. How could there be? How could there be? Don't wait for your emotions. They'll hold you back. You see, the third law of the brain states that your words affect your feelings. That's why it's so important to know about your limbic system, to know about your emotional feeling system, and understand that your guardian, your all want, that's where you make your decisions. In the Bible, we see Jesus in the garden. He's praying, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. He knew he was about to be crucified. Notice what he ended it with, though. Father, I don't want to do this. In his humanity. Notice what he ended with. Nevertheless, not what I want, but what you want, God. It's all right to express. We've got emotional limbic brains.
I often say that our habits are the architects of our future. The brain's limbic system, which is responsible for our emotional responses, plays a big role in this. Chronic stress and unresolved emotional pain can weaken the brain's defenses, making it vulnerable to illnesses, including dementia. Developing healthy routines, whether it's choosing to forgive or pushing ourselves to stay active, rejuvenates the brain. These practices not only aid in emotional balance, but also fortify neural pathways. In essence, what we choose to feed our minds and bodies today determines our mental clarity in the years to come.
The way to do it is to have breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, then have an 18-hour fast through to the next morning. Or come to Misty Mountain Health Retreat, where we make it really easy for you, and you do 2 days on vegetable and fruit juices. That's a shocker. It's a shock to the body when the food stops coming. That's one shock. The next shock is finishing every hot shower with a quick cold.
Notice I didn't say a long cold one. I'm kind. It's a shocker. You'll go. It's a shocker, but it's going to stimulate your brain to release the brain-derived neurotrophic factor and new brain cells.
Number 3, high-intensity interval training, running for your life. for 30 seconds up hills, then having a break and then doing it again. That's a shocker. Feel like you're dying. So people that have been attending my lectures all week, and I'm sure you've been so excited about this, you've been doing it, are you feeling really smart right now? New brain cells. Something else can grow. Every time we learn something new, we develop another dendrite. I love memorising. It's one of my favourite things to do, and every time I learn new verses, another dendrite. If you play the piano and learn new pieces, there are 3 things that science shows are the most powerful in developing new dendrites. One is learning a new language, learning a musical instrument, and memorising Bible verses, because the Word of God is quick, powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to dividing asunder of soul and spirit and the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. That's the Word of God. That's the Bible.
People think I've got a good memory. I really don't know. That lady who played the piano, she didn't start playing yesterday, I'm sure, and I didn't start memorising yesterday. It takes a while. How long does it take to really solidify in your brain? Probably about 21 days.
I learn a verse a week. If I do any more, it gets all jumbled up and I can't remember anything. So every time you learn something new, another dendrite grows. That one brain cell can develop 70,000 dendrites. I can hardly get my mind around that one. And you know what the research shows? We can be growing new dendrites right up until the day we die. So there are 3 things we can grow. We can grow new pathways, we can grow new dendrites, and we can even grow new brain cells. God is so good.
What about shrink? When you forgive anyone who's ever hurt you in your life, your glial cells are activated to mop up all the thorns, and the pathway to that memory actually shrinks, so it needn't be part of your daily thoughts. That's the good news. So what's the bad news about shrinking?
If you don't use your brain cells, you will lose them. I love the story about the 90-year-old man who learned to play the piano, and the 92-year-old man who graduated from law school. It's time, students. Number 7, the last law is the law of diversion.
And the law of diversion states that when something is so firmly denied as to refuse any hope for it, the brain has the ability to divert to other pursuits. I love that law. Because sometimes God closes a door, but what's there saying?
Closes a door, he opens a window. An Italian man said to me, no. What we say is when God closes one door, he'll open 2. Have you found that? When I hurt my arm, something happened to me the week before. I was in Warburton giving meetings like I have this week, and my right-hand man, he was the man that was with the chairs, he was doing the sound system and running around. He had one arm, and it was his left arm, and he was about 63. And every time I looked around there, it was there. What do you want me to do now?
I said, how'd you lose your arm? He said, I was 7 years old, and he said, and it was an accident down on the farm, and it got caught in an oar or something. He said, when I woke up in hospital the night after it had happened, or the morning after it had happened, he said, I sat up in bed and I said, nurse, get me a pen and paper. I got to learn to write with my left hand.
It's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. And happiness isn't things, it's not what's happening to you, it's a choice. It's a choice, and we have so much to be happy about, yeah? So much to be happy about.
The human body has an incredible capacity to generate new brain cells and connections through simple yet impactful habits. High-intensity interval training, fasting, and continuous learning create an environment where the brain thrives. On the other hand, depression can hinder this growth, slowing mental agility and paving the way for cognitive decline. However, engaging in challenging activities, like learning a new language or memorizing scripture, actively builds new neural pathways. These small but deliberate actions lay the foundation for a resilient mind that stands strong against dementia. When adversity strikes, it's these conscious choices that help us not just survive, but truly thrive. That concludes today's deep dive into natural, everyday practices to combat dementia. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for more empowering health insights in future episodes.